We are right in the middle of NBA trade season right now, and there are some trades around the league that, like, they would be cool. It would be nice if this team made a move, but there are also other trades that need to happen, and that's what these are. First and foremost for me, I know we talked about Toronto a good amount on the channel recently, but it needs to be said, this video can't be made without this guy being on the list, and it is Pascal Siakam. Toronto appears to be motivated to move him. They appear to be understanding the situation here where they need to make sure they're getting value out of their players, not losing them in free agency. They made the OG Anunoby trade. The guys they got in the OG Anunoby trade have been, pretty decent for them. And Pascal Siakam, I would argue, assuming Donovan Mitchell isn't available, is the biggest name on the trade market right now. It's not Zach LaVine. It's not any of these other guys. I mean, from a talent perspective, Siakam has been a borderline all-NBA caliber forward for the last handful of seasons. And there's a lot of really interesting fits for him around the league, whether it be in LA, whether it be in Miami, Philadelphia. There's a lot of teams that could give you, expirings and picks, maybe a young player as well, in exchange for Pascal Siakam. One of the big teams that's been thrown out there a lot recently as well is Sacramento, which is interesting to me because Siakam alongside Sabonis in the front court would be cool, but would further limit them defensively, which is already an issue for that team. And Sacramento reportedly was like in on Siakam, and then they got out of the talks. And to me, that means that Toronto's requiring Keegan Murray to be in the deal. And if you're Sacramento, what's the point of trading away Keegan Murray to get Pascal Siakam? You want to be additive. You want to have Fox, Murray, Sabonis, and then add someone to that. And ideally that person would be Siakam. But obviously if Toronto doesn't like any of the pieces they have, then it doesn't matter, right? So, but this is a deal that needs to happen. Toronto needs to get value, and they need to just go into a new era of Raptors basketball here with their new first-year head coach now and just getting value for these guys. Because I think it's very clear at this point, Siakam is not going to return. We've got rumors about, him going to Atlanta, even going back as far as a year. There's 5 or 6 teams around the league, I'm sure, that would put in offers for him right now. Before the deadline, this is a deal that absolutely needs to happen. Speaking of Atlanta, next up, I'm going to put DeJounte Murray on the list. I know I made a Hawks video not too long ago talking about how I didn't really know what the direction of the team was, where are they going, what's this roster doing, and kind of where I've landed since then is they need to split up the guards. The DeJounte Murray trade, in theory, made sense because they wanted Trae Young off the ball more. They wanted to add another star. They wanted a defensive counterpart alongside Trae Young. But here's what's happened since DeJounte Murray has been in Atlanta. Those two guys haven't been teammates, basically. Like, they are on the floor together sometimes, and they start the games together. But for the most part, it's like Trae Young's out there, he gets the ball all the time. DeJounte Murray's out there, he gets the ball all the time. And when they're out there together, Trae gets it most of the time, and DeJounte Murray's just kind of standing around. He hasn't been as good defensively in Atlanta as he was when he was an all-NBA caliber defender in San Antonio. And DeJounte Murray's really good, but the idea of DeJounte Murray, the point guard, alongside Trae Young, the 2 guard, just never materialized. And that might have been the concept when they made the trade, but it just never happened that way. And this is clearly a roster that isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And it's just, in my opinion, it's time to get some value out of DeJounte Murray and try and find a better backcourt partner for Trae Young, because I don't think he's that guy. I don't know who the backcourt partner alongside Trae Young would be, but it's clear that DeJounte Murray is too much of an on-ball player to make sense alongside Trae, assuming Trae isn't going to play off the ball, which clearly he isn't. And so to me, this is kind of similar to Toronto, where it's like, this isn't working, make the move. Next up now, I put Kyle Kuzma on the list. We're getting a lot of rumors recently about how Washington wants to get multiple firsts for him. I think that feels unlikely, but if the Wizards can get a first-round pick for Kyle Kuzma at the deadline, I think that they should do it. He's on this big contract. They wanted to make sure they retained him, but he's good and he's useful to a lot of different teams. He isn't a perfect fit on every team because he leans way more towards scoring than you would like for, a complimentary guy that you'd like to bring in, but he can shoot, he can guard a little bit, he gives you some good size, and he can provide you a scoring punch as well. I think my concern, if I was going to trade for Kuzma and I was, one of these teams that's trying to contend this year, like if I was Philadelphia, right? If I wanted to bring in Kyle Kuzma, my concern would be him not being the kind of role player that I want, because he's kind of reeling him back in after being this like basically primary scorer for the Wizards. But for Washington, there's no reason not to do this. They need to be playing Koulibaly, they need to be playing Denny, they need to be playing, all these other younger guys that they have. And Kuzma's solid and has good value. And at this point, it's clear that your season isn't going anywhere. And he's going to be a guy that other teams are going to want as well. I mean, I guess theoretically you could argue that his value will be higher next year, the year after, as the contract kind of starts to go away a little bit. But at this point, it's like Kuzma's value is going to be 1.5 first-round picks, not good first-round picks, late firsts, for like the next year or two, right? And at this point, it's like, why would you even bother keeping him on the roster? That value probably isn't going to change. It allows you to play some of the younger guys a little bit more. Next up now on the list is Bogdanovic in Detroit. I always screw up which is which. That's why I'm just saying the last name, because I always get the Atlanta one and the Detroit one mixed up. No matter what I do, I always just say the wrong first name. But Bogdanovic in Detroit, this is a tough one because they've been playing a little better since they broke the losing streak. And without him, their shot making is going to be disgustingly bad. I mean, they rely on him a shocking amount every single time that they actually have a decent game. They really rely on him, and obviously Cade as well. But he's gonna have, it's kind of like the Kuzma thing. Like, obviously he's older, but he's gonna have value. Like, Milwaukee would love to have Bogdanovic on their team. Same thing with Philadelphia, Miami, like the Lakers. There's a ton of teams that would love to have him on their team. He's probably worth 1 to 1.5 first round picks, potentially move him, and it's gonna be really rough. Like, the team is gonna get significantly worse by trading him away, but it allows you to play Asar Thompson more, allows you to play Jaden Ivey more in different lineups. That's just the way things are right now in Detroit. I mean, you could keep him and win a few extra games probably because you have him on the roster. There've been some weird reports about how Detroit's actually looking to add pieces. Maybe they're like a Siakam team. I don't know about all that, but to me, this is a very obvious, we're not very good. We have this older role player that's going to fit super well in other contending teams that is worth 1 to 1.5 first round picks, late first round picks. Let's go ahead and move that guy and get future assets. Unless Detroit thinks that keeping Bogey is going to allow them to be a decent team next year if they add a couple more pieces, to me, it makes all the sense in the world to just go ahead and move him. And then last up on the list, I put Draymond Green. It's been a weird situation ever since he left the team because parts of the Warriors have been playing better without Draymond. Like, Kuminga has been much better since Draymond went out, and he's been one of their better players since Draymond went out. And I've talked a lot about the Warriors on the channel this year because of the issue of it being clear that trading Clay or Draymond is the right move, but obviously because of the sentimental value of those guys, it's hard to actually make that decision. And the reason Draymond's on the list is because I think there are teams around the league, like the Lakers, like a handful of other teams, that would actually want Draymond, despite some of the issues that he's had on and off the floor, that would actually want him and would trade some stuff. Not a ton of stuff, but some stuff. And right now, it just feels like Golden State has to pick either Draymond or Kuminga. And theoretically, Kuminga is the more valuable player. You could potentially have him be the base of like a Pascal Siakam package, and then you could really kind of change your roster in a really interesting way. But if pieces of the team start playing better when a guy gets suspended from the team, despite what he still means to you defensively, I would start to maybe take that as a sign that it is time to move on and move him somewhere else. It wouldn't be an easy decision because Draymond does still mean so much to the franchise, but to me, need to happen maybe is a strong phrasing for Draymond, and it is a complex situation. But their front court rotation with him back in the lineup is really difficult to figure out. Saric is good, Jackson Davis is good, Looney is useful, and Kuminga's been awesome as well. So like, who's not playing then all of a sudden? Is Draymond gonna play 20 minutes a night? Like, what exactly is happening here? For the first time in the entire run there in Golden State, Draymond feels like a luxury. He feels like someone they don't really need. They don't really have to have him out there. And if that's the case, given the direction of the Warriors season so far, I would certainly really explore moving Draymond Green. But as we know in the NBA, things can change all the time, so we'll kind of see how things work out as we get closer to the trade deadline. But for me right now, these are some trades that absolutely need to happen.